Joy, Love, and Healing podcast. I'm excited to have a really good friend of mine here and a really talented, so many things. I don't know where to start. But, you know, what I love so much about this personal growth and personal development is, and what I try to share the most is sometimes those patterns and those areas where we feel the most stuck are sometimes our gifts. And I think that's what human design has taught me is like, Jay, you can stop beating yourself up because this is just part of who you are. And when we can learn to really love and embrace aspects of us without pushing and fighting, life gets easier. So I'm going to tell you about Jackie. Jackie is a human design for business expert, marketing consultant, and breathwork and subconscious transformation facilitator. Typical manifesting generator, can't pick just one. We'll get back to that. Jackie is obsessed with transformation and devoted to growth. She works with established entrepreneurs to realize their team's potential, align their marketing and their unique energy so it feels easy and fun, and straight up trust themselves more. Jackie describes herself as a weirdo. Yeah, me too. At the intersection of woo and science, of magic and practicality, of intuition and strategy, and loving every minute of it. I love that. Hi, Jackie. Good to see you. Long time no see. I love that because I would agree completely with human design and with your work. The whole like woo versus science so anyway, we have lots to talk about. Tell me a little bit about you. Tell me about human design for those people who don't know what human design is.
Yeah, human design is this like weird science that has like a super woo aspect, which actually kept me from diving into it at first. Like when I first started hearing about human design, the scientist and the skeptic in me was like, yeah, that sounds bogus. Like that can't be a real thing. But it kept chasing me around and something in me was like, okay, I need to know a little bit more. I need to experiment with this a little bit. And as I started to dive into it and get to know it a little bit, I was just, we're going to talk about what it is, but I was experimenting with my strategy and authority, which is our decision-making strategy. And things started getting easier in my life. And I wasn't overthinking everything all the time, which is one of my patterns, right? Yeah. And it just felt like so much more satisfying. And people were like, what are you doing? What have you changed? Like people started noticing, people started asking me. And that's when I was kind of like, there's something here. And so when you look at a human design chart, and so like they look like very kind of confusing / scientific-y, like if you had to pick sort of a woo place to feel sciencey, I think that's one of the reasons why I got into human design is that there's so much logic and mechanics and there's so many levels and there's so much layers and depth there. But the foundations of human design are, this guy Ra had a download from The Voice on Ibiza in the 80s over the course of a couple of days, which of course sounds like he was on some kind of drug-induced coma, which is possible. And I mean, you know, psychedelics bring us closer to our higher self sometimes, and who knows where it came from. But it's a kind of combination, a unique and novel combination of Kabbalah, the chakra system, the I Ching, and sort of like neutrinos and some quantum like science elements. And when you look at it and you start to get into the mechanics of it, you're like, one person could never like make this up, like dream this up. Like this, I really do, once my skepticism got past it, believe that there is something that was, you know, given to him here to help us understand ourselves better. Because I kept hearing, you know, before I found human design, I was kind of drawn to people who are like, oh, well, just trust your intuition and like, let your body guide you. And I was like, great, that sounds awesome. But like, how do I actually do that? Because like my brain was like trying to like figure it out all the time.
You are.
And there was a lot of...
Are you a scientist?
I do. I have an undergraduate degree in atmospheric science. I was a meteorologist.
I love that. Okay. I just want to let people know that because you know.
100%. Yeah. So I like my brain is very like I am skeptical. I do have a scientist mindset when it comes to a lot of things. And so I could feel this pull towards, you know, intuition and, you know, that there are things that science can't yet explain. Because that's what I think the gap often is that like there is something there and our science hasn't got there yet. You know, before science discovered the quantum realm, they had no idea what was going on at that level, right? We only had classical mechanics before quantum mechanics were discovered. So there are always new things that I think science is working towards. And if we can't yet understand the energetics of the human body, which is incredibly complex, that, that doesn't mean that there isn't a scientific basis for something.
Yeah.
All of that to say that I think the cool thing about human design, and one of the reasons why I went down that rabbit hole and continue to go down that rabbit hole, is that human design doesn't ever say, you have to believe X, Y, and Z and follow it like it's gospel. It's always been, and since the beginning, Ra, the father of human design, has said, this is an experiment. You get to go into your own experiment, and your strategy and authority, which is your unique decision-making strategy that you are energetically wired based on your unique chart. There are thousands of variations of what your chart can look like, and 15 different decision-making strategies out there. You get to use that and see how it goes, right? And each of us, there are 5 main types in human design, which is, if you've heard of human design, you've probably heard of manifesting generators, projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. So those are the 5 types. And I'm a manifesting generator, which
I'm a generator.
is about 35% of the world. And we're, we are kind of the multi-passionates of the world, which is why I said I'm a typical manifesting generator. I can't just do human design. I can't just do breathwork. I can't just do subconscious transformation. I want to do all the things, and bringing it together in my own way is one of their superpowers as a manifesting generator. So those 5 types each have signature kind of feelings. So green light feelings and red light feelings that you can use on your experiment. So for me, and for generators and manifesting generator, all generators and manifesting generators, the green light feeling is satisfaction. So the more satisfied I feel, the more it's a clue from my life that I'm on the right track, right? And that I'm following my decision-making strategy. My red light feeling, or not self theme, is frustration. So the more I'm frustrated, which before human design, I was often in my business, trying to initiate, trying to force things to happen, trying to make things happen, which is what the world tells us to do, and is absolutely not how it works for generators and manifesting generators. Then we feel frustrated, and frustration is just our stoplight feeling, our red light feeling, and it also sucks energy away from us. So being able to get some tools to say, here's how I can start my own experiment and see, do I feel more satisfied? Do I feel less frustrated? How does it feel when I trust my gut? Because that, for me, is my decision-making strategy, that I respond to something and I have sacral authority. So I have this or yes feeling in my gut, which for me feels kind of bubbly or light or almost like butterfly sometimes. Or is it an lean back? No, it feels heavy in my gut. And that is how my body's wisdom, my intuition, speaks to me. And having that explained,
it validates.
Finally gave me oh, this is what it means to trust my unique intuition and my body's wisdom. And when I looked back, as hindsight often is, I could say, oh, there were times in my life where I had to make very big decisions, like what university to go to or which job to take or whatever. And I did trust I did have a gut feeling, even when we couldn't logically say, well, it should be this or that. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Or, this feels like something that I really want to do. So, it was just really freeing to have that. And then to get to start experimenting with it, even before you go deeper into well, what do all the numbers and colors and things mean? You can know your type a little bit, you can know your strategy and authority and start using it to make decisions and then see what that creates for you.
I think freeing is a wonderful word, because that's kind of what I felt when I first learned about it. Learning that I had this emotional pattern of ups and downs. I would be why am I so up and down? But now that okay, we just got to ride the wave, Jay. That's part of who you are.
Exactly.
For example.
Yeah. And 50% of the world actually has emotional authority like you do.
Yeah.
And so 50% of the population is not here to make in the moment decisions. And think about the amount of pressure that we put on ourselves, or the society puts on us, to be decisive, right? Yeah. Make a decision now, right here on the phone, right? If you're not doing that, you're not a confident decision maker, but that's totally not correct for you. So when you do
Right.
that, you end up being frustrated. You end up regretting the choices that you're
Regretting the
making. And
choices.
so that's what human design gives us this permission to, it is the science of differentiation. Like we are so completely, uniquely, differently designed. And the more we can embrace that, the more free we each can be and let each other function the way that we are here to function. And I think also it just shows me, like on paper, how, we are each designed exactly for our unique purpose, mission, whatever you want to call it. Like I can't do your job, you can't do my job in the way that I do it or the way that you do it. And we're wired differently for a reason. And so one size fits all type blueprint things, whether it's in business or life, are just not going to work for everyone.
I love that. I think that's so key because I've seen you work, and you're amazing. You're amazing, and you and I would work very differently. And that's the beautiful thing. The right people, the right clients show up based on who we are and how we operate in the world. And there's plenty for everybody. So how can human design help people? So I'm assuming it can help them in all realms, relationships,
it can,
financial, work. Do you want to give some examples or anything that comes to mind?
There are human design ways to come at the chart, and people who have different expertise in different regions. You can use it with your kids, you can use it with your family, with your partner, in your business, right? Yeah. I think for me, what's been the most powerful was understanding my own decision-making strategy, right? Which is, like the top level of our human design. So this is how we're wired to be tapped into our intuition. And then it's something you said earlier, actually, which is that our greatest lessons are what we're here to teach. And that actually shows up in our human design as well, from a business perspective, but from a life perspective also. So in our charts, we have these like centers that are colored in, which is, these are our defined centers. This is the energy that is consistent in us that we're broadcasting. So it's like our radio transmitters. In our open or undefined centers, these are the white ones, in the chart. That is where we do not have consistent energy. We actually receive the energy of others in those particular areas. And each center, it's kind of like the chakras, but there's 9, because there's a long thing about why human design has 9 versus 7 centers. But so there are different areas. And for example, I have a completely wide open, undefined heart center. And the heart center in human design is the seat of willpower, ego, self-worth, competitive energy, that sort of stuff. And so in our undefined centers, because we take in other people's energy, we're the most susceptible to being conditioned and kind of getting pulled away from like our true nature. And so I've had a lot of the patterns that have shown up in my life are been around proving and feeling that I need to like achieve certain things to be accepted or be loved or, be worthy. And untangling pieces of that, of knowing that I am worthy just as I am. And I don't need to prove myself or do things that I think other people are going to approve of in order to be successful or in order to be loved, in order to be accepted, in order to love myself. There's so many layers there, but that's been a massive learning point for me. And that center is in human design. Once we learn the wisdom of our undefined centers, like that is where we have the most to teach. And it's actually where our profit potential lives in human design.
Can I ask you about the undefined throat? Because that's what I have, I believe.
Yes, you do have an undefined throat. So the undefined throat, the shadow of the undefined throat is trying to get attention. Okay. And trying to be the star. Like, I need to be heard. I need someone to listen. I have something to say, and how come no one's, hearing me or seeing what I have to say is so brilliant? Or, just like it shows up usually either as someone who's really like loud and trying to get a lot of attention, or the other way, like I'm quiet because I can't trust in what my voice is here to say. Mm-hmm. And so the profit potential there, when you learn to trust the wisdom of your undefined throat and know that like when communication is right, that it comes out from you powerfully, like you have almost this connection to some universal wisdom that can just flow out of your mouth when like the time is right and the timing's right and the audience is right. But like if you force it, then it probably feels like it gets stuck. Right. And like,
is it also for writing as well, and like other forms of expression?
Yeah, any kind of communication comes out of the throat center. Yeah.
Oh, it's so interesting.
Yeah. So when you learn the lessons of like, how do I know when the time is right, when the audience is right, when the energy is there for me to let the brilliance just come through, then you have a lot to teach others about the power of their voice and the power of their words and the power of like trusting that flow for themselves, right? In a way, what somebody who hasn't defined throat like I do, my voice is always there. My words are always there. So I don't think about, like, you send me questions ahead of this podcast that you were like maybe going to ask. I never look at those. I don't prepare. Like I literally am the best. And I know that about myself since I was like in school, when I can just show up and like, just like be in the moment and respond and let it come through, because I don't ever worry that I'm not going to be able to say what I want to say. Whereas undefined throats often feel like I need to prepare. I need to be scripted because I can't always trust that. Even though you can, like, you have much power, more necessarily, it's not necessarily more powerful, but the way that your words land is going to be different than the way that mine land when it's like correct. Yeah. So it's beautiful. I love the looking at our defined and undefined centers in human design, because it can show us exactly where those shadows are going to live and where the patterns are that we have probably been unpicking in our personal growth for our whole lives, and be like, oh, like, I'm not crazy. This is where I'm supposed to be learning. And this is the type of wisdom that's possible. And this is how I can use this in my business. And this is how I can use this in my life, for people. And it's also how I use it in breathwork. Because
tell me about that.
Understanding, like, when I look at someone's chart and I see, oh, well, they have an undefined emotional center. So people with undefined emotional centers are often very empathic. They take on a lot of emotional energy. They might try and fix other people's emotions a lot. So just going in and understanding that and being able to guide them through what emotions are theirs and not theirs, and how can we let that go. Or somebody who has an undefined sacral center. So those are the non-generators or manifesting generators. That's our like place of work. We have all this energy to work and build, but non-sacral people don't necessarily. So they feel lazy and they feel like they can't keep up. And so being able to guide them through into that energy and to let go of those stories and let go of all of the crap that they tell themselves about how much work they should be doing, or if they can't keep up with somebody else, or, you know what I mean? Like, that they have other talents and other ways of showing up than just working all of the time. And how can they get back in touch with like what gives them pleasure, and how to, how to like work smart and not feel guilty for resting, that sort of stuff. So there's all kinds of
I've seen you brilliantly, by the way, do this work I think the wonderful thing is you have literally somebody's chart, so you understand scientifically, but then you also tap in. But I see you tap into your divine wisdom too, and intuition. So that mix is wonderful. And breathwork is also woo meets science, in my opinion, right? Very practical in many ways. So I think this is such a powerful combination. So do you often work with people creating their chart first, and then offering coaching and breathwork? Yeah.
So when I do a private breathwork session, I always have people submit their birth information, which is all that you need to pull a human design chart. It's your date and time and place of birth, because it's got astrological influences too. And so I pull up their chart and I have that. Depends on the session, how much I use it. Because sometimes people come in and they're very, this, like they know what they want to work on, or they have like something that's very pressing in their life. And so it might be that I see it and I have it in the back of my mind, but I'm not using it directly. And then there are sometimes people show up and say, I'm open to like whatever. And I start to use it before we breathe, to just dig in and pick in a little bit, like at where they might be, wanting to like let something go, or where there's a pattern that they want to work on. And then I often use it in the like resting part of the breath, to give them like, I call it like the best cheerleading of your life, because I use like affirmations from their human design and like strengths that they have clearly built into their chart, and just like feed that to them while they're like in the resting and meditation, because it's such a powerful brain state to take those messages on board. Right.
Well, for those who haven't done breath work, the relaxation period is you're pretty much in a trance, in a hypnotic almost state, where anything that comes in, you can receive really easily, right? On a deep subconscious level. So I love that combination. I've never seen anybody else combining these two modalities, I guess I'll call them.
I have run into one or two others in the human design space. And I mean, we all do it so differently, again, because our charts are so different. Right. And what we bring to the practice is different, but I love it. I think the more that human design gets used in every industry and every niche and every aspect of life, the better, because it gives people like the permission that they need to be them and to do it their way. And like, we do not have enough of that. I mean, our world is going there. I think people are starting to understand that like the box that society has kind of put us all in doesn't fit for everybody, and that there's room for this like beautiful spectrum of all different skills and talents and ways of working. But I think that our society is going there even more powerfully, like in the next decade, and human design has been exploding in the past couple of years. If you're listening to this, this might not be the first time you're hearing of this. And if this was 3 years ago, you would be like, what? So, I think it's fantastic.
Interesting. And it takes you much further than, we've talked about ancestral and family stuff, which is super powerful in healing that. But I guess everybody's so unique. So there's no correlation, right, with your human design to your parents.
And your parents?
For example. Or...
I think my line one likes to be sure when I answer questions like this, and I don't have a definitive answer. But I think speculatively, I have heard that there are influences, because there's an astrological influence here. I know there's like karma from past lives and past generations that can show up in some of the different placements in the chart. So that is probably playing a role in human design. I think I have heard of, you having similar designs to one of your parents is fairly common, but I don't think it has to be this way. Like it's not necessarily my mom was a projector, so I'm going to be a projector. Like it's not like that, because it's based on so many calculations that happen the day and time you were born, and even 80 days before that. There's like the unconscious body and the conscious side of our human design. So there's some randomness there, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's like some karmic links and ancestral links that do show up in the design, but I can't answer that definitively. Yeah,
no, that's good. And what about, I'm curious about predictive stuff, right? We all want to know what's going to happen. And, I've heard something about after 50 for me, is when things really open up. I have goosebumps, and it's so true. I feel like my life is just beginning now. I'm turning 53. So is there some of that in the chart as well?
There are cycles. So just like in astrology, where you can look at different times in your life, like the Saturn return, the Uranus return, you can look at that stuff in human design as well. And the transits of the planets can play out. Your situation is a little bit specific to human design, because Jay has a 3-6 profile. So if you go and pull up your human design, one of the things it's going to tell you is your profile numbers. There's 2 numbers. The first one is conscious, and the second one is unconscious. And so Jay has an unconscious 6th line, and the 6th line does go through 3 distinct phases, and that is part of the evolution of the 6th line. It's the only line that has that evolution. So from age 0 to 30, you're really in this 3rd line phase where it's very trial and error. You probably did a bunch of different stuff. There might have been a lot of failure, bumping into things, or like experimentation. But like that was necessary part of the process. And then from 30 to 50, you go into what's called the being on the roof. And it's like you kind of come out of that muck a little bit. For you, there's a bit of tension, because that conscious 3rd line is still there. So you're conscious, like your personality still has a lot of this trial and error going on. But like the unconscious part of you is going up onto the roof out of the mud to have a perspective from a little bit higher. And then after age 50, the 6th line really steps into the leadership energy that it's like the butterfly comes out of the cocoon, really, in that, like, I've been up here on the roof observing all of these things, and now I have this perspective and wisdom to share that from all of my life experience to this point, that people really feel, and they're really going to resonate with. Like, I feel your wisdom. I feel that you're here to lead, and you have this wealth of life experience and perspective to like be a leader and to have that kind of sage energy.
Yeah, I love that. I remember turning 50, and it was almost like, okay, Jay, you have permission now to shine, to really step into leadership. For whatever reason, I felt like age was important to be like, looked at as a leader.
Well, it is kind of built into your design in that way. Yeah. Not
See?
that any six lines out there who are 30 or 32 should feel like, oh, I have to wait till I'm 50 to be successful, because that's
Right.
not, human design is not done well. I don't think human design should ever be something that limits you, right? It is a beautiful permission slip. It brings awareness, and it gives us something to experiment with. It's not in its highest expression, I don't believe, like, well, you're a projector, so you can't do this, or you're a six line, so you can't be successful before 50. Like, it's not predictive in that way.
No, it's guidance and
it just lets you know, like, here's some things to think about and notice, and like give yourself permission. If you are a six line and you've had like a pretty chaotic, like up to age 30 time, you can be like, oh, cool, like that's what I'm supposed to do. Nice, I'm on the right path.
I love this. Well, we have so much more we can talk about. I'm going to have you back because I want to go even deeper.
I told you 30 minutes wasn't enough time.
I know. It's like, wait, I still have a few questions for you before we end. It's something I ask all my guests. And the first question is, what brings you the most joy in your life?
Gosh, so many things. So many things bring me joy. I have two small boys, at risk of sounding cliche, because I know parents always say this, but they're 6 and 4, and they bring me lots of joy, lots of frustration also, because they're small. But just watching how kids engage, and I have their human designs too, and it's like, wow, kids are really themselves. You know, like they really don't yet have all of these layers of stories and conditioning that we have, and watching them just be themselves unapologetically, it brings me a lot of joy. And I would say, like, what else brings me joy is like growth in any way, shape, or form. Like I said, for myself, for other people, holding space for other people to grow, also like working on myself, and not in a like I think I'm broken way, but in a like I get to be another version of me. Like I get to unpick another pattern. I get to step into like another level. That brings me a lot of joy and satisfaction.
That's beautiful. And what do you love most about yourself?
My enthusiasm. Yeah.
Nice.
I like, people tell me that all the time, and I'm like, I've always been like this. I just like, when I really love something or I'm really into it, I'm like, whoa, this is so exciting. And I know that I bring that energy to wherever I go, whether it's with friends or family or like with clients. And
it's contagious.
Yeah,
for
I really
sure.
love that about myself. Yeah.
Nice. And my last question is, what is your definition of healing?
That's such a good question. I think, like I said, it's just understanding that we get to be the next version of us. Like we get to peel away things that are kind of in between where we are now and where we want to be. It's not like I really don't think we're ever broken.
Yeah.
It's just like we're here and we have these stories or layers or identities or whatever it is. And as we heal, we get to clear those out and like see with new eyes, and be able to be the next like version of us, which is always fun.
That's beautiful. I love that. So people want to learn more. There's so much here. And, you know, how can they reach you? Tell us where we can find you.
My website is jackiejohnstone.ca, and you can find, like, I have a little short podcast episodes that are linked on there for my podcast called Lumos, where I dive into, like, how does this stuff show up in my real life? Because I find a lot of the stuff that you can find about human design is it can be very theoretical. There's a lot there. Yeah. And just hearing, like, for me, how people use it in their real lives, the difference, the examples can really help. So that's linked there. Of course, you can book a design decode session with me where we can actually like go through your chart and take a look at it and discuss how you can use it in your business or your life. And I am most active on Instagram. I love getting DMs and answering questions about human design. I would be happy to share my enthusiasm about breathwork or human design with you there. And my username is @JackieJohnstone.
@JackieJohnstone. Wonderful. Oh, thank you, my friend, for your time. You have so much amazing information. My pleasure. We'll have you back. We have more to talk about. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in.